Okay, let's go ahead and get rolling, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation today, how to stand out in the search results and drive qualified customers to your website, successful SEO strategies for small businesses. So hopefully that is what you came here for, and if so, you are in the right place, and I think we've got a lot of great content for you. All right, before we get rolling here, just a couple of logistics to start. One, I will send you a link to a recording of this presentation. So there's no need to take real intense notes. You can kind of sit back and just relax and enjoy the presentation. And we will get you a recording, so in case you want to go through it back again for anything specific, you can. Second, we're going to cover a lot of material today, and I'm planning on moving pretty quickly so we can get you back to work. So I just highly recommend, if you would, please just put all your focus on the webinar. I know it's awfully tempting to multitask, and we've all got a lot going on, but you signed up for this to get some value out of it, and I'd love to be able to deliver as much value as possible. So please, if you can, shut down that email, turn off the cell phone, all that good stuff, and I'll get you through this presentation here as quickly as possible. Also, really important here, if you have any questions, please chat them into the box below this presentation. You should see a little, little chat box or question box there below the presentation, and I will address as many of them as I'm able to at the end of the presentation, given time and given that it's a question that I can actually address. But not to worry, if there's something that I don't get to, someone from my team or I will personally follow up with you to make sure that your question gets answered. Okay, so please just chat those questions into the box below, and we will make sure to address them either during this presentation at the end, or we'll follow up with you individually to make sure that we get your question answered. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into the subject at hand now, search engine optimization, also known as SEO. So first things first, why should you really care about SEO? You've got a lot of marketing tools available to you, and you can certainly spend lots of time and effort, working with your website to do SEO. It can seem like one of those things that maybe would be a huge investment of time, and you're not exactly sure about the results. And I can count on maybe, one, maybe two fingers, the number of small business owners I've met who have complained about having too much time and too many resources at their disposal. So we obviously want to make sure that any strategy, any tactic that we're using to market our business is going to be high ROI and very effective. So I know that you're protective of your time, you're protective of your resources. I'm a small business owner too, and I don't have a lot of time or patience for experimenting with things that are unproven. So we definitely want to make sure that we're investing our time and energy in the right places, and I get that. Well, I'll submit to you that you can't do much better than SEO, and I'll tell you why. 93% of all online experiences today begin with a search engine, and 97% of consumers search online for local businesses. So if you're doing some sort of business where it's people primarily in your town or in your neighborhood that are going to be interacting with your business, 97% of consumers are searching online for businesses in their local area. And finally, the majority of web traffic is driven by the big three search engines. You've heard of them: Google, Bing, and Yahoo. All of these stats tell a pretty straightforward story about how business is conducted in today's age, right? We all are online today conducting business, looking for businesses, looking for reviews of businesses, directions to businesses, phone numbers for businesses. I can't remember the last time I used a phone book, and most of you probably will have a hard time remembering as well. The search engines have become the place that consumers and business people turn to get the information that they need. So given that so much of our interaction with brands happens online, it's really no surprise that businesses are spending a good amount of time and money trying to boost their visibility on the web, and SEO is one of the best ways to do that, and maybe it is the best way to do that. It's effective, it's affordable, and it is proven. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this who cares question. Maybe you're wondering why you should invest in SEO when you can just run ads and leapfrog to the top of the search listings. If you're familiar with search engines, you know that there are the organic listings, which we influence through SEO, and then there are the paid or sponsored listings where you're paying to advertise your business, and you can just pay and have your business show right up there at the top of the search engines. That is an option. Well, it's one approach, but it's typically a very costly one. But the bigger flaw in that approach is simply that it's less effective. People aren't as likely to click on sponsored ads. I think it's because more and more people know that they're sponsored ads, and so they realize that they're being advertised to, and so they feel like there's probably more credibility in the organic listings. And when they do click on those sponsored ads, they're actually less likely to buy from clicking through on that ad than they are when they search on an organic listing. In fact, 77% of searchers choose organic listings over paid listings, and 67% choose organic search results when purchasing. So organic results are more effective. Even more important here, organic click-throughs generate 25% higher sales conversion than pay-per-click ads. So as you can see, those organic results, those unpaid listings where people don't feel like they're being advertised to, those are the most effective opportunities for you to get more traffic and visibility and sales at your business. So if you can get your website to show up in the top of those organic results, you're essentially in the pole position as a business. More buyers are going to see your website, and a higher percentage of them are going to become customers. All right, if you've ever seen, this reminds me, if you've ever seen that movie Predator, that old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, this is what search engine results look like when that nasty alien is looking at the search engine results. So if you remember that movie, there's this alien that had this heat sensing vision that it used to track down and kill people. So this is what it looks like through the search engines. It's not as ominous. In all seriousness here, what you're looking at on this slide is a heat map of a search engine results page. And this reveals what people look at when they perform a search in this case in Google specifically. And as you can see, most of their attention, it's in that red area there. Almost all of it is focused on the top left of the page. This area is known to SEO experts as the golden triangle. It's golden because if your website shows up within it, you'll get the majority of the visitor traffic for that term, which can obviously mean big money. So when you optimize for search engines, you're not just trying to show up on page one, you're actually trying to show up in that golden triangle, up as high as you possibly can. And in fact, statistics have shown that the #1 organic listing gets almost 50% of all traffic. It's almost 50% of all traffic. So you have a huge advantage over your competition if you can get up in those top couple spots. All right, another question I want to address up front is whether SEO is a legitimate form of marketing. You'll hear a lot of people say that it's just a sneaky way to game the system or to cut corners or to try and trick the search engines. That maybe somebody's selling you some sort of snake oil, or it's this dark art. SEO can get a reputation that maybe it doesn't really deserve. Actually, in some cases, that reputation is deserved, I have to admit. I think really what we need to do is we need to clarify here. There are two types of search engine optimization, and the first one is called black hat SEO, which, not surprisingly, is the bad kind, right? This is the bad cowboy. It's the black hat SEO, and it's what really gives all of SEO a bad name. It relies on kind of spammy, high-risk strategies that really are borderline unethical, or maybe well past the border and just purely unethical. They're very high risk because Google and the other search engines are doing everything they can to stop this sort of behavior and stop this unethical manipulation of their search results. So if they catch you doing these types of things, they will not hesitate to put some pretty harsh penalties on your website and potentially even just ban your domain from their directory altogether. So, in the past, there were a lot of black hat tactics that worked really, really well. I mean, before the search engines were a little more, sophisticated like they are today, it was actually pretty easy for some of those unscrupulous consultants out there who would sell their SEO services to small businesses and then apply these tactics. And a lot of times it worked, and these SEO consultants would make a lot of money. Other times it wouldn't work, and that business that had no idea would get burned in the process. They get in trouble with Google or the other search engines, and then they would have no recourse because these unscrupulous black hat SEO techniques were used on their site. And of course, that SEO consultant would then just ride off into the sunset and not really worry about that business that they had burned. Well, Google's ranking algorithm has become much more sophisticated over the years, and it's much harder to have success with some of those black hat techniques, and it's much easier to get caught. Google devotes an enormous amount of its huge operating budget to stopping these types of black hat behaviors and to catching the people that are doing them. So regardless, that reputation was largely deserved for a period of time. I mean, doing SEO was very much like the Wild Wild West, and there was just not a lot of rules around it in the beginning, so there was a lot of just kind of high-risk behavior. Now a lot of that is getting much more contained by the search engines and their ability to track and detect that kind of behavior. So we want to focus on white hat SEO, and yes, that is a picture of the Dalai Lama wearing a white cowboy hat. I have no idea where our designer found that picture. I have no idea what the Dalai Lama was doing wearing a white cowboy hat, but I think it's an awesome picture. And surely, if the Dalai Lama was involved in SEO, it would be white hat SEO all the way. With white hat SEO, you don't have to worry about any karmic payback. It's ethical. And even Google gives you the green light. In fact, it may surprise you to know that Google itself is one of the best sources of information on SEO, and that should tell you something if you're still concerned about SEO's legitimacy. I mean, Google and the other search engines will actually give you specific advice on how to do SEO for your website. So, Google and the other search engines, they want your website to be easily found in the search engines because that makes their search results that much better, and that means that more people are going to use their search engines over the competition. So they will happily tell you how to SEO your site as long as you play by their rules. All right, so let's dig into that. Let's talk about how the search engines work so that we understand exactly what it is that they are looking for out there on the web, and how they go out and look at your website and determine where it should show up in the rankings. Now, before we get into that, just a brief disclaimer here. We will get a little bit technical here just for a couple minutes, but please don't get scared off. I'm going to hustle through it, and I think it's important that you have at least a decent understanding of how the search engines work, because if you understand that information, then it will be much easier for you to figure out what are the right strategies and tactics for us to make sure that we're getting our website ranked. Okay, so this is not purely an academic exercise. I think that it will help everybody to make sure that you have at least a basic, fundamental understanding of how the search engines work. Okay, so that disclaimer aside here, let's get rolling. Okay, some of you may recognize what this picture is, and some of you may have absolutely no clue, depending on when you were born. I know I have not seen one of these in a long time, but this is a picture of a card catalog system used by libraries to organize all of the books and all the information, within the library, and to make them easy to find for visitors, right? So you'd have to go and look in these card catalogs to find what you were looking for. Well, this is basically what the search engines are doing. They're just doing it in obviously a much more sophisticated way, but search engines have armies of automated robots that are called spiders. that can crawl through the many billions of web pages and images and videos and other types of documents that are out there that, make up the World Wide Web. And once these spiders find all this content, they analyze the code, they analyze the content, and they organize that or index that, right? And they take selected pieces of that content and they organize it on these massive hard drive, farms in these huge data centers. And they are constantly out there working to find new information and make sure that it's organized properly. And they do all this really in just fractions of a second. I mean, it's amazing how fast that they are able to go out there and collect and organize all of this information. So, the reason that you're able to get onto your computer and quickly browse for some information and get the results returned to you immediately, very quickly, right, is that the search engines have already gone out and collected all of that information out there on the web and organized it onto their servers so that they can just very quickly and easily present you that information. So the next important thing is that the search engine then has to decide which piece of content out of the billions that are out there to present back to you, right? When you go in there and you search, they have to decide, okay, which piece of those content should we actually present to the searcher? So how do those big search engines decide which piece of content gets top placement? Well, it basically boils down to two criteria: relevance and importance. Now, relevance is, pretty straightforward, right? Does a page talk about the information that the user typed into the search engine, right? If you type in vacuum cleaners into the search engine, then obviously the search engine wants to only return to you content that is related to search engines. So that's not that difficult to understand. It's pretty straightforward. But there's lots and lots of content out there about vacuum cleaners, okay? So the second element, importance, is a little bit trickier. And this is where, Google and the other search engines have to make a little bit of a judgment call, right? So they can't return to you billions of pieces of information and say, you decide, right? None of us would have the attention span for that. So what they do is they, of course, rank things into pages. And obviously being on page 1 of the search engine results is where you get somewhere roughly around 98% of all traffic. So in the case of how they do this, in the case of Google, it takes kind of a democratic approach. And what I mean by that is they are looking for which sites get the most votes or links back to that site. So Google interprets a link as a vote of confidence for a website. And if a site has a ton of incoming links, Google says, well, this site must be important, and it gives it a higher rank. Now, that's just a generalization. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and it's not a pure democracy, right? Some votes count more than others, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail here in the presentation. But that's generally how it works. So for now, it's critical that you understand those just kind of fundamental things about how the search engine works, and then you need to really understand, most importantly, that the search engines are doing all this because they want you to be happy. They want you, the searcher, visiting their search engine, to be happy with the results that you get back out of it so that you will return again and again and continue using their search engine. And of course, while you're there, on occasion, click on some ads, right? That's how the search engines make their big money, is if you click on those ads. But if you're not happy with the quality of the search results, you're going to lose faith. You're not going to want to go back to that search engine. You're going to go someplace else, and then you won't be clicking on their ads, and they're going to lose out on all of that advertising revenue. So Google and the other search engines really, really want you to be satisfied with your experience, and that's why they don't want anybody gaming the system, okay? Because if you use their search engine and you get results from somebody who is obviously just gaming the system in their favor, then obviously, Google and the rest of the search engines are going to be concerned that they're not delivering back the best customer experience that they possibly can. All right, so that's at a very high level how the search engines work And their motivation, of course, is to make people happy, and that part is very important. So now let's look at the other side of the equation. Let's talk about how people, just like you and me, use the search engines, because this part is really, really important to understand. A huge part of successful SEO strategy is getting into the mind of your customer to understand their wants, their needs, and motivations. So you have to try for a bit to temporarily step outside of your role as the seller and occupy their role as the buyer or the searcher. And that's not necessarily as easy as it sounds, but if you don't do that, then you're going to have a much harder time being successful in SEO. Okay, so let's go through the process of what it's like when somebody searches. At this point, search engines play such a big role in our lives. It feels like they've been around forever, and it's funny because just 10 years ago we weren't really using them at all. Now they're constantly just a part of my day. I don't even think about it, right? So when something is that much a part of our life, we often forget to step back and think about what are the actual steps. It all just kind of flows naturally to us now. But it's worth thinking through the various steps that we take when we conduct a search, because it's actually pretty involved. And by thinking about these steps, you'll be able to better empathize with your customer and tailor your SEO efforts accordingly. Right? So let's just walk through this real quick. It all starts when you have a need for an answer or a solution or some other piece of information, right? You then formulate that need into words and phrases. You enter those words or phrases, the keywords or the search phrase, into the search engine. You browse through the results that are returned to you for some sort of match. You click on one of those results. You quickly scan to determine, hey, is this what I was looking for? If it's good, you stay there. If you're unsatisfied, you typically hit that back button and go back to the search results and perform a new search with maybe a modified keyword search term or search phrase, right? So that's generally the steps that we're going through. Now, in order to train your brain to think like your customer, you're going to have to temporarily maybe abandon some of your biases and your habits, and again, try and think in terms of what the customer is thinking. So let me give you an example here. There is an entire industry of businesses that I know very well that specialize in providing ongoing computer support or IT support to other businesses, right? So if you're a 25-person company, you may not have your own internal IT department like a big company does, right? But you still have enough computers and technology there that you probably need somebody to help you every once in a while with setting up new computers for your new employees, or getting viruses off of your computers, or setting up your email properly, things like that. Well, there's a whole industry of people who do that for other businesses, right? They call themselves managed service providers. Okay, managed service providers. And you'll hear them talk about that, we deliver managed services. Well, the rest of the world thinks they provide computer support, right? We don't talk about, I need some managed services in my office right now. No, we think I need some computer support, right? My computer's on the fritz. I need some computer support or some computer help. So the funny thing is that the majority of these, managed service providers, they'll go out and advertise using the language managed services or managed service provider when nobody is out there searching for managed services or managed service provider, because nobody uses those words. The customers that they're going after use words like computer support or IT management. So this is a good example of, you've got to understand that your language, your vocabulary, the things that you've picked up in your industry are not necessarily the things that your customers use, right? They may not have that exact language. So you've probably adopted a new language and some new customs of your industry, and you need to learn to temporarily suspend that and think through, well, what are the language and customs of my customers, right? Because if your language isn't optimized for them, if you're not speaking to them and using their keywords, well, needless to say, you are not going to show up when they do the search looking for your products or services. All right, so if you're going to take anything from this webinar, I would like it to be that you want to build for people, not for search engines, okay? Build for people, not search engines. In fact, say it with me one time. Build for, no, I'm just kidding. I won't make you do that. But it's important that you understand that the bedrock principle of good search engine optimization is understanding that you are trying to create content for people, and those people are using specific keywords and phrases to find what they are looking for. If you don't match up with what they are looking for in the specific language that they're using, then you will get lost in the billions and billions of pages of information while your competitors get their site returned to these good prospects and customers that you're after. Okay, so we've talked a good bit about now how search engines work and how people use search engines. Let's talk about how you design and or develop your website and your SEO strategy to get the best results. The stuff I'm going to talk about in this section is actually mostly invisible to the people that visit your website, but it's critical, kind of behind the scenes stuff that's really important to the search engines. So even though I just said that you want to build for people, not search engines, there are certain things that you need to do to make sure that that great content that you're creating for people will actually get recognized and picked up and indexed properly by the search engine. So there are some fundamental things that you need to get done right. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about some technical stuff, but I promise not to spend too much time on it here. Okay, first, it's important to understand that search engines don't look at web pages the same way a human does. Right? For starters, search engine spiders are image blind. They can read text, but they can't see pictures or graphics or illustrations the way we can with our eyes. Not yet, anyway. And actually, the search engines are working very hard to make it so that they can do that. But until then, you need to realize that what the search engines can find and can understand is text. So, if most of your website's content is not in text, and I see this all the time, that people just want their websites to look pretty. So they'll put up just a big picture on their website, or they'll use Flash, on their website to do some really cool animation types of things. That's all well and good, except for the search engines have no clue what that is. So you're actually not giving the search engines the information that they need to rank your websites and to give you preference above your competition. And this is a big mistake that a lot of businesses make. So you've got to make sure that you have enough text on your website or you are virtually guaranteeing that your site won't rank well. Now, spiders are unlike us in that they can't see images, but they are very much like us in that the way that they follow or navigate through your website is that they follow links. So when you go to a website, maybe you see some article that you want to read that has a link in it, and you follow that link to another article or another video to watch. That's the way the spiders work their way around a website as well. They look for links to additional content, and they follow those links. Now, if you don't have links set up properly to all of the different pages of your website, all the different content in your website, those unlinked pages you can see here in this diagram over there to the right are called orphaned pages. They won't get found by the search engines because there's no good links showing the search engine spiders where to go. So that just means that content won't get indexed in the search engines, which means that you are losing out on that content and losing out probably on some ranking for your website. So you've got to make sure that you have a good link navigation structure that promotes easy indexing of your site. Now, another way to help the search engines is to use what are called robots. There's actually this robots.txt file, robots.txt file, which gives instructions to the spiders. You have these in the code of your website. You can use them to tell the search engines which areas of the site they should and should not crawl, which just makes it, again, easier for the search engines to find your good content. And that should be your goal at all times when you're structuring your website, is to make it easy for the search engines to find your good content. So another way of doing that is what's known as sitemaps. Sitemaps are just another tool that you can use to make it easier for the search engines to find your content. And it's essentially a list of files that gives hints to the search engines on how it's best that they make their way through your site. So again, what you're doing is you're helping the search engines find and classify content on your site that they may not have found on their own. So the easier you can make it for the spiders, for the search engines, the better your chances are of ranking high in the search results. All right, another great way to help the search engines is to ping them, P-I-N-G, anytime you create new content for your site. When you publish content, pinging is essentially just notifying the search engine that there's new content on your site, and hey, search engines, would you please send your spiders back to my site so that you'll know what that new content is, so that you can share it with the rest of the world when they're searching. So pinging is it's again just notifying the search engines that, hey, I've got new content, please come check it out. Now the good thing is you don't really have to do anything. There's all kinds of easy, simple auto pinging tools that you can use that will just automatically do that for you. But it's a good idea to make sure that you have that service set up, those tools set up, so that you are making sure that every time you create new content, you're quickly getting credit for it. All right, next here is URL structure. URL is just your address of your website, right? So it's the address that you type in for a website. So in this example, you can see down below, we took a screenshot of a URL from a site called Copyblogger, and it's just www.copyblogger.com / and you can see the rest of it there, but that is the URL. In general, you want your web pages to have URLs that are short, that are static, meaning that they don't change, there's no variable data in them, they're descriptive, and they're hyphenated if they're a bit longer, not using any other crazy characters. Hyphens are the ones that the search engines and the human eye prefer. So why is shorter better? It's easier to read. It's also easier to remember and share, so people can tell their friends. Also, remember that your URLs actually appear in the search results. So if your URL is too long, it's going to be truncated, and you may not be communicating exactly what you intend to the searcher. Also on this slide, you'll see in red, there's an example of a dynamic URL structure, which doesn't provide any good descriptive information because it's actually a dynamic URL, just meaning that the website automatically created it. Versus you can see the one in green there, it's better because somebody actually took the time to put a descriptive piece of information on the back of that URL to make sure that it communicates something more effectively. And you want that. You want your URL to be descriptive of the content that's on the page. That's helpful to both you and the search engines, or your visitors in the search engines, I should say. And lastly, as I said, you want to use hyphens, not any other character, to separate words. They're the most commonly used and understood separators, and just kind of easy on the eye. So make sure you use hyphens and not anything else. And again, there's a URL down there from Copyblogger. It has all of these three important attributes, right? Copyblogger.com / SEO - quality. It's telling you that the article that you're reading is something about SEO site quality. Okay, so just good things to keep in mind when you're creating your URL structure. All right, so I told you those are some of the more technical things you can do to help your site rank. The reality is most businesses don't pay attention to any of those things, and their rank suffers because of it. So I promise you I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it. We went through it pretty quickly, but those are fundamental things that you should make sure that you understand and you apply on your website. All right, so moving right along here, we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of content creation as it pertains to search engine optimization. And this is really, really critical. The most important thing about creating content is you realize that ultimately it's real people who buy your stuff, not search engines, right? So you've got to make sure that you please the actual people that ultimately end up on your website. You will only get so far if you focus all of your efforts on persuading, Google and the search engines. In the end, you've got to persuade the flesh and blood people that are coming to your website to take action. So, as I said before, write for users or write for people, not search engines, right? You want to create content that is for the people who make it to your website. Content is still the undisputed king of the internet, right? Without good content, you're not going to get very far in your efforts to improve your visibility. You've got to make a point to create compelling content that your customers will find useful and engaging, and potentially even entertaining, depending on what your business is. So the search engines are constantly looking for some sort of indication that your content is good content that people like. That's what we talked about earlier with the links, voting. Voting. A link is effectively somebody voting that they think that your content is good content. So the search engines are looking for ways of determining which content is the best out there. So you really want to put effort into that content. And I want to clarify something. There's a big difference between engaging content and what's called link bait. Right? Link bait is a term used to describe content that exists purely for the purpose of getting clicks or getting links. That's kind of the junk food of web content, right? It's high in calories, but it's low in nutritional value. The point is that you want to create good quality content that when people get to it, they're impressed by it, they're engaged in it, they want to read it all, they want to share it with their friends. That's ultimately, in the long term, how you get ahead in the search engines. So let's talk about how to create that great content. Great content starts with keyword research. Keyword research is maybe the most important activity in SEO. Everything in search begins with keywords and phrases, right? That's how you start in the search engine. So ranking for the right keywords is the ultimate goal of search engine optimization, because ranking for the right keywords will help you draw the right people to your website, right? You want the people that are ready, willing, and able to purchase whatever it is that you're selling. So keyword research is absolutely critical, because if you're optimizing for the wrong keywords, you're going to get the wrong visitors and your results are not going to be impressive. So there are several things to consider when choosing which keywords to focus on in your website. I actually talked about vacuum cleaners earlier, so we're going to stick with a little vacuum cleaner example here. The starting point is, of course, relevance, right? We talked about relevance and importance earlier. Well, if you sell vacuums, obviously you're going to focus on vacuumy keywords, right? Vacuumy is not a word, I know, but you're going to focus on keywords that have to do with vacuums. But relevance is just one of the many considerations. You also need to consider the volume of the searches, the competitiveness of those searches, the intention behind those searches, right? So, for example, let's consider the motivation behind some of these keywords here. So if I just punch in the word, vacuum or vacuum cleaner into the search engine, what I get here, you can see the top keyword is vacuum cleaners, very high competition, and there are 1 million global monthly searches for that phrase, and probably more than that. But let's say that I sell really high quality vacuum cleaners. So I could focus just on the term vacuum cleaners, or if you see down below here, I've underlined the phrase best vacuum cleaner. Now, this is a much lower search volume. It's 90,000 searches a month. I mean, that's still a lot of searches. But I'm only getting now about 10% or 9% of the searches that I would get if I just went after vacuum cleaners. But if I sell really high quality vacuum cleaners, which do you think is going to get me the best return on my investment? Most likely, the person that's typing in best vacuum cleaner is a buyer that is looking for a higher quality product. So yes, I could advertise to just the people searching in for vacuum cleaners, but I'm probably spending a lot of money focusing on somebody that is, a large number of people that are probably not my ideal customers. So, focusing on the right keywords can make a huge difference. And I know this seems pretty obvious or basic, but you'd be surprised to learn how often businesses pick keywords simply because they have high volume, when less used keywords would probably drive a lot higher quality traffic and result in a lot more sales. So it's critical that you think through a number of these factors in your keyword research. Now, the next most important thing when creating content is frequency. What I mean by that is that you want to frequently create new, fresh content for your visitors and for the search engines. Search engines know that information is changing daily, and they want the most up-to-date information for their users. So it sends its spiders out all the time to crawl and index every web page it can find, looking for the most current and relevant information. So here's the rub. Google and the other search engines will not re-crawl your website if it doesn't think that you've published anything new, right? So if your site is kind of stale and doesn't get new content very frequently, the search engines will not crawl your site as often. And if it's not being crawled, that means that your new content is not getting out there, and it also means that your website rank is probably suffering, okay? Because Google and the other search engines are more likely to rank sites with fresh content higher, so you're probably getting shoved down in the search results. So it's super important that you give Google a reason to return to your site on a regular basis, and this means regularly updating your site with new content, including text, images, and videos, so that you have good, fresh content out there. Now, I mentioned there video. So speaking of video, if you aren't using it to market your business, you are missing a huge opportunity. There is a ton of evidence out there that shows that video is one of the most effective ways to climb up the search engine rankings in a real short period of time, even in very competitive industries. And this is due in part because, Google classifies videos separately in their search results, and Google owns YouTube, which is a hugely successful property for them and where they're seeing just incredible growth. So they know that people are very interested in videos. So if you create good video content, Google says, well, we know people like, videos, so we're actually going to rank those videos pretty high. So get filming, all right? You don't have to have a film degree from NYU. You don't have to be the next Martin Scorsese. You can, make this as simple as just, taking your iPhone and recording a casual video at your office. Sometimes, in fact, that's the absolute best content that you can make. People want to see you and your personality. They don't want to see something that's got, crazy production value and feels like it's, too produced and rehearsed. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to feel like it's got to be some just, Hollywood style production. Just, again, whip out that camera, do some filming, or if you're not comfortable with that, there's a lot of very inexpensive video artists out there now that can create some videos for you on the cheap. But whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of video. All right, another great way to get your content noticed is to package it up into lists. You've probably noticed this already. The internet is made up of lists and lists of lists and lists of lists of lists, right? There are lists all over the internet, and there's good reason for this. Google likes this format, and so do humans, right? I mean, we've been creating, lists forever, right? The 10 Commandments were, maybe the first list, right? But people like lists. It's an easy way to digest information. It's an easy way to organize information, right? If you put it into a little list and you kind of rank things for us, it's very easy for us to understand and digest. Whatever the exact reason is, there is just all kinds of evidence, again, that lists rank high. So look for opportunity to create, content lists that fit, into this structure, and it will help your SEO efforts a great deal. I can tell you that if you, share out to the world that you've created a new list, you will be amazed at how many people will share that list with others. It's one of the easiest ways to get attention on the web. All right, a little bit more, geeky things here, a little bit more tech stuff again. I want to talk code again just for a second, specifically meta tags and title tags. These are two very important pieces of HTML HTML, is the language that we're using on the web, that you should pay attention to when you're creating and posting your content. Every page on your website should have a unique and descriptive meta and title tag. The meta tag doesn't actually display on the page, but search engines display this text in the search results, right? So when you search into, you type your search into Google, some of the content that's displayed there is actually the meta tag information from the pages that Google found. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's good information so that when the searcher sees it, it's relevant to them, making it more likely that they will actually click on it and then head to your website. The text in the title tag gets displayed in two places in the search engine listings. It gets displayed in two places in the search engine listings, where it's the blue clickable text there that you see, and at the top of the browser window. So you want to make sure that you're thoughtful about what you're putting into these meta and title tags. You want to make sure that you're including the relevant keywords that you is tied to your content, so that again, when people are searching, they see that they found the right thing to go and click on and visit. So very important that you pay attention to that information and get it right. Another very important piece of code is the alt tag or alt text, and this is used to identify pictures. As I said earlier, search engine spiders are image blind, so you can't expect them to see your images. What you need to do is describe those images with words to ensure that the images get properly indexed and identified by the search engines. So you can see in this example, the alt attribute is how you're doing this. You can see it says alt equals smiley face, alt equals smiley face. So what we're doing here is we're communicating to the search engine that, hey, this is a picture of a smiley face. So super easy to do. You just need to make sure and add some text to the images that are on your website to make sure that the search engines can find them, identify them, and know how to categorize them. All right. So now we're going to switch gears here and we're going to talk about off-page optimization. This is the part of SEO that's a little bit trickier, but very effective. It's trickier because it's largely outside of your control. I mean, the off-page optimization, what we mean by that is the stuff that's happening outside of your website that impacts your website ranking, right? So all of the things that I've shown you up until now are things that are on the website itself. They're things that are directly under your control. Off-page optimization, these are things that you can influence, but ultimately you don't directly control. So, if you recall, I told you that Google determines the rank of a page largely based on these two factors, relevance and importance. And it's constantly trying to determine importance by measuring the popularity of a page, which is largely determined by the number and quality of links, which are votes pointing to that content. So one of the best ways to demonstrate your importance to Google and the search engines is to acquire more links pointing to your website. And not just any links. You don't want junk links. You want links from very credible sites known as authority sites, right? Back in the day, a long time ago, a link was just a link in Google's eyes. But today, Google and the other search engines are more discriminating when they look at links. So if you get a link from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or from a very important university or a very important nonprofit, Google is very impressed with those links and it's going to bump your rank. However, if just some regular website that has a lousy ranking is ranking to you, Google is less impressed and they're less likely to bump your position. So building relationships and credibility in your industry and in the marketplace and in with other sites that have high credibility in the search engines is the way that you're going to boost your own search engine rankings, right? It's kind of a popularity contest. If the popular people think that another person is popular, then that person becomes more popular, right, by association. It's the same way on the web. So there are all kinds of strategies to go out and do this. Many of them black hat, as we talked about before, but a lot of just very smart white hat strategies as well here, which we'll talk about a few. One way that's really critical, and it's growing in importance at a very rapid pace here, is making sure that you are incorporating social sharing into all of your content. For a long time, Google in particular didn't give much weight to links that came from social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, but that has changed dramatically recently. And of course, if you're familiar with Google Plus, you know that Google, has started really investing in social media and in their search results. So social has become, largely the name of the game, and the more that you can get people to share your content via the social networks and to mention your content in the social networks, the more you're going to get inbound links, and the more the search engines are going to view your content as very relevant and fresh and give you higher rankings. So it's really important that you incorporate a social sharing strategy into your content plan, into your SEO plan, and that you are active in the social networks. Now, another proven way to increase your links and get good website traffic is to start a blog. According to a study by a software provider called HubSpot, business blogging leads to 55% more website visitors than a website that doesn't have a blog. So that's pretty darn significant. There's a lot of people I know that think that blogging is a waste of time, but it's a fantastic marketing tool. For one thing, a blog by nature, you're frequently creating more rich, relevant content. And content, as we talked about, is still king. And a blog is an excellent way to publish relevant content and frequent content. So, the search engines love it. Google loves a blog. It will visit that blog frequently with its spiders to make sure that it's getting the most current information, and will also tend to rank that blog pretty highly. So a blog could be a part of your main website, or it could be an entirely separate site. Either way, you've got some great additional real estate for content that will attract links and get you ranking. All right, the last thing I'll mention in this section is directories. Directories are places on the web where you can get your website and your business listed. It's just, kind of other sites out there like you're familiar with. Sites like, Yelp is a good one. Sites such as, DMOZ, which you may not be as familiar with. There's lots of directory sites out there. Some of them are very publicly known, like Yelp, like the Yellow Pages sites. That's an example of a directory. Some of them less well known, unless you're maybe a SEO dork like us, like DMOZ, places like that. But there are lots of directories, and they're great for SEO purposes. They essentially offer you an opportunity to get more inbound links from high credibility sites, and in the case of a site like Yelp or the Yellow Pages, they can communicate a lot of confidence and credibility to people who are out there using those sites to look up businesses. Like, a lot of people go to Yelp to look up local businesses, and those Yelp listings have real customer reviews, so customers feel good about going there to get information about that business. So, directories can be really, really important for your business. So you should try to get as many directories to include your business and your website information. You want to make sure that that information is complete and that it's accurate in as many places as possible, and that's really going to help your search engine rankings. All right, we are almost an hour into it. We've covered a lot of ground here, so I'm going to keep moving quickly here and try and get through the rest of this here as quickly as possible. Here's the deal. SEO is not a silver bullet. It's a process, not an event. It's something that you do over time. It can be hard work. It can be time consuming. And sometimes the results don't come as quickly as you'd like, but it is worth the investment. The data proves it, and people testify to it. In fact, a Merchant Circle survey of small business owners recently asked, if you had to put all of your marketing time and budget into only one channel, what would it be? And their answer was SEO. Okay, and that's because so many people see great results by it, and they realize that, man, if you're ranking well in the search engines, you're getting a lot of qualified prospects and customers to your website. So you got to just keep in mind that a lot of the things that I covered in this presentation, these are things that may take you time to execute, and that's okay. The ROI can really, really be worth it. All right, you may be overwhelmed. Don't be. You can use SEO. You can take advantage of SEO at your business. I promise. I've seen it work in every type of industry and every size of business and on just about every size of budget. So just know that we're here to help you. If you'd like somebody to talk to and bounce some ideas off of, or to discuss a potential SEO plan of attack for your business, please feel free to get in touch. We won't give you a high pressure, pitch, but if there's something that we can do to help you, we're glad to help. All right, let's go ahead. I want to address some of the questions that came in here. Looks like we've got a few in queue. All right, let's see here. First one, is buying or trading links a good link building strategy? This is a great question, and just to keep it brief, the answer is no. That's one of the strategies that worked a long time ago. Buying links or trading links used to work a long time ago. Now the search engines, particularly Google, has become wise to that strategy, and they've learned how to detect when people are doing these things, and they will penalize your site. So no, I do not suggest that you trade or buy links. Let's see here, another good question. What tools and resources do you recommend to learn more about SEO strategies? It's a great question. The best resource, I think, is go right to the search engines themselves. Again, they all publish guides on what they recommend you do to rank as highly as possible in their search engines. And they really do have great information and great free tools that you can use to help you. So start there, and then SEO Moz, that's SEOMOZ, is one of my favorite sites, as well as Search Engine Land. Those are great sites for getting some of the additional kind of more in-depth and technical research and strategies from real hands-on SEO professionals that are out there doing this every day. Somebody asked what our favorite keyword research tool is, and can we help them with their keyword research? Yeah, absolutely. We're glad to help. Keyword research is really important, so you definitely want to get that right. The free keyword research tool in Google is fantastic and a great one to start with, and probably enough for most of you in just about all cases. There are a number of tools that we use that give us some more detailed information that really go beyond the scope of this presentation. But we do have some additional tools kind of in our arsenal that we use to really dig into some more detailed keyword data. But yeah, glad to help. Certainly glad to help with any of this stuff. So if you need any additional information, or you'd like to talk about a plan of attack, certainly just give us a buzz. All right, I'm showing that we are right at an hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. There are some additional questions, and we'll follow up with you folks directly outside of here to make sure we get those answered for you. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got some good information out of the presentation and you're able to put it to use at your business. And again, we'd love to help. If there's anything that you need some help with, just get in touch. All right, take care, and thanks again.